Hey guys, Dakota Grappler coming to you live tonight. Sitting in my basement around some of my sports stuff and gonna talk some wrestling with some great wrestling buddies of mine. I know we're going live on Facebook. I did put it over on Coaches Only. If you guys haven't had a chance to go over to that website, some wrestling coaches, you have to apply to get in, but there's some great content on there. I did put it on Dakota Grappler. It will be on both the website and on YouTube. Still looking for more subscribers on YouTube. I know people get pretty comfortable seeing everything over on Facebook, and we get hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of people that watch on Facebook, but it doesn't turn over to YouTube the same way. Because if you look at YouTube, it'll say like 50 views or 20 views or 10 views, and it's hundreds of views when it comes down to Facebook. But very, very comfortable. Wrestling is right around the corner. Before you know it, we'll be on the mats. We've had several guys already competing, and we got lots of different things we can talk about. Bill and I had our opening show for the 2021 wrestling season. We got some things we could talk about from last spring. We really didn't get to finish out the wrestling season. Come March, a lot of things went kind of haywire for a lot of different wrestling people. So we'll talk some of that tonight. I want to actually look at a couple of college rosters. I'm going to go over and maybe share some screens so we can look at those, because I think I'm kind of excited about some people that are actually wrestling at the next level at some of the North Dakota and South Dakota schools. Other than that, just happy to be here, happy to promote the sport of wrestling. Earlier tonight was in a USA Wrestling meeting. We had a Zoom meeting for North Dakota. I can give you a few updates there. Nothing totally major, but we just had to do our budget meeting and a few things that way. But it's always good to see those wrestling faces around the state that promote in so many other levels. I do appreciate Mark Lardy and other board members. He's the president of our USA Wrestling in North Dakota, for putting on the Zoom meeting and having a great attendance and really kind of keeping things in order in the state of North Dakota in this crazy times. Other than that, Bill, I'm going to introduce Bill Holden. Good buddy, gotten to know him. He is my college guru. He is the guy that knows international wrestling. He knows so much. I know that his plate is full of good wrestling information. And then on the far side, we got Tom Schoenhard, another good buddy of mine who, gosh, he is our Rapid City flavor, but he's our South Dakota guy who also, I tell you what, I've enjoyed all the conversation I've had with him. He brings in knowledge at a different level where he promotes the sport at even at a youth and middle school and has boys that wrestle. And he's just a great ambassador of the sport. And like I said, I enjoy talking to him every time I talk to him. So let you off, Bill. Anything you want to start off with? If you want, you can introduce yourself. I know a lot of people know us, but I've tried to get more and more new people. I know there's new people out there. Go out there and make sure that you promote the sport. So Bill, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, thanks, John. Bill Holden here, coming to you from Central North Dakota. Just a big wrestling fan, obviously, really at all levels, everything from youth to the international levels. And, I spend a lot of time following wrestling. I enjoy it. I make time for it, I guess, within, a busy schedule. And, it's fun to get on here and talk about. It's always fun when Tom comes on. I get to hear more West River stuff than I get to see the rest of the year. And I've learned a lot about South Dakota wrestling as the last few years have gone by. Just spent a lot of time in the state down there too. So, it's good to see Tom, and made it through the summer. And, I'm sure he's probably never slowed down on wrestling, and he's ramping back up, I'm guessing.
Yep. Thank you, John. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, it's great to get on. Bill, and you and John too. Both of you guys probably know more in your pinky finger than I know, but I sure enjoy coming on, talking about wrestling. We made it through the summer, played a little baseball this summer, now into a little football, but for the most part, we're still wrestling, we're still training, and we're excited, hopefully, for a season. Not sure how that's going to look. I think, football and volleyball and some of those sports are kind of dictating that. I think I read today so far, South Dakota had 18 games canceled on the football side so far, and a few more this week, but I think the schools are doing the best to manage it. It sounds like, everything that's happened is happening out of the schools, not in the schools. So, that's tough to control. That's kind of out of our control. But there has been some wrestling, and it's been exciting.
Okay, quick question for how are they running the schools? Are you guys at a modified schedule for South Dakota, especially in Rapid City area?
My wife was very excited tonight because there was an email that came out from the school. So right now, my boys, 7th grader and a junior, in the Stevens School District, and then my younger Max is in the at Southwest, which is a feeder to Stevens, in middle school. They've been going 2 days a week, so A through L, like, goes Monday and Tuesday. And then M through Z or whatever it is goes Wednesday, Thursday. Friday's been an online learning day for the whole district. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, they let the elementary kids go back to school. I think that's 4 days a week. I don't think it's 5. I don't have anybody at that level. But we did hear tonight, apparently, that Monday, they're going to allow the high school students to go back 4 days a week, I believe. They are wearing masks in school. It's been difficult to do anything inside the schools. I know there's a lot of youth teams, basketball, football, whatever you say. They're not letting those teams in, to practice and do things in the schools, which is a little alarming as we look forward to youth wrestling and what that's going to look like. We've got a Zoom meeting for our South Dakota Coaches Association on the AAU side, along with some USA guys. We're going to talk about that next week. But, kind of looking at how things are going to go. But based on what we're seeing in Rapid City and even East River, there's been some tournaments. South Dakota's been open. That Denver series, the Rocky Mountains has been traveling around the Midwest, Iowa, around the area. And they've had a couple tournaments in Rapid, and they've been some pretty competitive tournaments. If you wanted to wrestle, we had one about a month ago and then one this last weekend. But so the good news is the kids will be booted out of the house. Mom will be happy. They'll go 4 days a week. And that means that right now only 2 parents or siblings or friends can go to football games. They don't let students in. That might change next week. They might have a student section, which will be nice for the kids to kind of get back to closer to normal.
Correct. Now, are you guys holding any, let's say, homecoming or events like that? Are they holding off down there?
Well, funny part was they moved homecoming up a week. We play Central in football this Friday. And if we know now what we know now, if we would have known that our homecoming was actually next week and they moved it up a week. And so they did everything virtually this week, but they could have done it next week. And then we would have been at level 1, which they call, and we're at level 2, but going to level 1, it could have been a little bit maybe more enjoyable. But anyway,
okay.
So for right now, they did a virtual coronation, but the kids can't go to the football games. And I'm kind of disappointed because I like to go watch too, and so do my kids. So, yeah. Sure.
And most of the time you're going to notice parents are not just, how can you say, fans of their own kids. They also support whoever else is out there. And it makes a big difference. The crowd, you'd be surprised. The camaraderie you get between parents and fans and grandparents, especially during the wrestling season. Be surprised. It's a long day in the bleachers if you don't know anybody for some of those parents. So
that's right. It's exciting to meet new people. And a lot of the kids, frankly, playing for Stevens now. I coached at a 5th, 6th, 7th grade level, and it's fun to see them get bigger and stronger and faster and have success. And hopefully you just, in your heart of hearts, you hope one of them comes up to you 5 years down the road and says, "Hey, coach." And that means the world to me. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I experienced the same thing too. When a kid comes up to me and calls me coach still, and I haven't coached for a long time, I'm going, okay, it's kind of a respect thing. It's like calling somebody Mr. You kind of respect that. It's pretty cool.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Couple more questions for you before we start talking some major wrestling. Now, for South Dakota, how did they end their season when it came to freestyle, any of the spring stuff? Did they end up very abruptly like everybody else did in March?
Pretty much. We got through districts of our AAU season, the South Dakota Coaches Association series. And then after districts, when the schools started to shut down, the schools wouldn't allow tournaments to be held. So regions kind of got called off. State got called off, and we actually were hosting state in Rapid City. So it put us in a pickle. We were able to kind of just roll everything over for 21 in the same venues in the same areas. So we'll run state again next year if everything, stays on track. But we stopped. And then, some of the kids, we had some kids training for some freestyle events, obviously the USA circuit, and looking to go to, some of the big tournaments, and a lot of those got shut down. And so I think we ended up, some of our coaches at the academy took some kids over to the LOG duels. We've had some kids wrestle in the Cosmic Clash, the Rocky Mountain series this weekend. And we had some kids wrestle earlier this summer. They had just kind of I don't remember what they called it, but another tournament that the Rocky Mountains put on. And then, of course, they've got their big monster match coming up in November out here, which is exciting. Black Hills Nationals, I just saw something on that the other day. It's always been a fun tournament. We always had a lot of North Dakota kids come down. I think, a lot of those Matt Pat kids came down. I think Black Hills State kind of called the shot on this, which was unfortunate.
Yep.
So they're not going to do that this year, and they're going to push it into the spring. But, so we've been doing a little bit of wrestling. But in terms of the season, how it ended for some of the kids, especially those kids that were older on the AAU side, they're kind of bummed out because they become the nail next year, not the hammer.
Right. No doubt. Well, I tell you what, it becomes kind of interesting. My boy plays baseball. So in the spring, this is the first year he didn't do any spring wrestling. And he told me he didn't miss it until all of a sudden they canceled it. And then he was going, where's the state wrestling? Well, I didn't think he was planning on wrestling it anyway. He was starting to get big and heavy. I was thinking.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Another quick question. How big has your boy gotten, if I might ask?
Oh, he's not as big as, I guess, other kids that I've heard of, but he's probably ran 20, 24. Yeah.
Sure.
He's about as tall as I am, which is a little scary as a junior in high school now. But he wrestled this summer and made 13 in a week. And let's just say that he's not missing any snacks or any meals at night. So on full feed, he's in that range. But he was able to make 13 earlier this summer pretty easy within 3 or 4 days. And he ended up wrestling that Rocky Mountain tournament and wrestled a really nice kid from Colorado that I think got second to a pretty good kid from the Bear Cave or somewhere down there and made the finals. So he had a good match with him and wrestled a kid from, I think, Texas. And so, I mean, and some of these kids that are traveling, they're traveling not because they just want to come see Mount Rushmore. That's second on the list. So some of these kids that have come out to some of these tournaments, they had, some duels and the individual side, but they're wrestling kids and wrestling families. And it's actually worked out. Rapid City is a tourist town. And for some of those kids that haven't been here, it's a great place to spend a weekend or a few days and go through the hills and bear country and camp. And, it's been busy out here. And as a matter of fact, we've had some kids move into the area. And I heard the other day, there's an old ski resort called Deer Mountain down here by Terry Peak. And somebody had said recently that over the last quarter, they've sold 47 lots up there in that area. So, and I've got another guy that's a builder on my football team that's one of the coaches on our 7th grade team. And he said that his phone's not stopped ringing and most of the people are out of state. So we've had a lot of people moving into state, not all wrestling kids, but just families in general, because we have been open. But to get a camping spot this summer, it was almost a knockdown drag out. I mean, it was tough to get. So, right. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I know that happened in our state with recreation, anything. You couldn't buy a bike. You went online. Boats were extra expensive this summer because if you were selling yours, it was pretty much gone.
I had a friend who was a banker out here, and they said they hired 2 people exclusively to do loans for campers and boats and kind of second things because they were so busy they couldn't keep up. So if you had a camper and you wanted to get rid of it, if you haven't sold it already, you missed out.
Yeah. Well, with this craziness, I don't think that's a bad thing. Get back outside and outdoors and start doing stuff out there. Got to think on how we've been so technology bound and stuck inside. Might be a very good thing for us. I mean, just as a community as a whole.
Yeah, I think, there was a lot of traffic. We do some work down in Custer and Pringle and down in the Hot Springs area and stuff. And, you could tell that those towns swelled up, but it wasn't swelled up to the point where it was crazy because there's so much room to maneuver down there. But, if you've got a side-by-side, 4-wheelers, some of that kind of stuff, you probably really enjoyed yourself this spring because there wasn't a lot to do. It was hard to vacation, if you weren't doing that kind of stuff.
Definitely. Okay, well, let's start talking some wrestling. I like catching up. Tom, actually, let's go to Bill for a second. Bill, give me a little update on what you found out wrestling-wise. I know we can talk about the big 8-man bracket sometime today. I wouldn't mind pulling that up because you probably looked into that. I watched part of the trying to think what show I watched. They were starting to break them down to the wrestlers.
Yeah, probably Flow Wrestling Live, probably, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's coming up the end of the month. Oh, it's on Halloween, I guess. It's a 195-pound bracket. They had a lot of guys that threw their hat in the ring. Winner gets $20,000. Some pretty good names. Some throwbacks. Keith Gavin, multi-time world team member. Head coach at Pitt. He put his hat in the ring. Let's see who else. Gabe Dean, national champion. That's coaching at Cornell. Threw his hat in the ring. Sammy Brooks, Iowa guy. Nate Jackson.
Is that going to be? Where's that going to be wrestled again? Do you remember?
It's going to be wrestled in Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas.
Yep. Drew Foster from UNI. Taylor Lujan, a UNI guy. Shakir Rashid, Penn State guy. These are all at 195 pounds. Miles Martin, Ohio State national champ. So really going to be a lot of fun. They have not drawn the bracket yet. I think there's kind of a interesting way they're going to come up with that bracket. So we'll see how that comes out. It may be next week, when the bracket comes out. Flow Wrestling also has this weekend. They have their Who's Number One big event, high school event, which will also be in Austin, Texas. That'll be streamed live on Flow. Probably not one that we're going to go through each match, but there'll be a lot of great matches to watch there. It'll be the who's who of who we're going to be watching over the next 5-6 years at the NCAA Division I level. So
yeah, let me show you something here for a second. I'm just going to pop up. Now, these are the guys, if you didn't see that in the bracket, I did have that up earlier. And there it is. Watch it on Flow Wrestling, the 8-man live. Now, this is the one where you can start looking into it. It says first place for $20K. Guys, see that? Gabe Dean. There's a couple guys on here I knew, and then there's a couple guys I do not know. What can you tell me about Rashid?
Well, Shakir Rashid obviously is, he was an All-American at Penn State at 197 pounds, dropped back down to 184 pounds this year. He's really had a lot of injuries this last year. So, his season wasn't, going along the way everybody, I'm sure the way he hoped it was going to be. But he is now this will be freestyle. I don't know Shakir's freestyle history, but he's a guy that's super, super athletic. He's got a lot of attacks. I think he will be very dangerous on top. I would have to believe he's got a pretty good top game. He was a guy that was kind of tough on top all along. So,
okay, I'm just going to run through the list of other guys because I knew a little bit about him, but I know the old Penn State connection, but I hadn't heard anything freestyle wise on him.
Nope.
And so
I don't remember. I mean, I'm not saying he's never wrestled freestyle, but we haven't seen it yet.
What can you tell us about Keith Gavin a little bit?
Well, Keith Gavin is I want to say Keith is probably 33, 34 years old. And he's the head coach at Pitt.
Yep.
He's doing a great job there. Keith was a guy that made the world team a number of times. He was, probably on the ladder and as a world team member in the top 3 several years, in some of those really tough brackets. He's really a good freestyle wrestler. He was a real good, he was a national champion also.
Yep. And I remember him in the trials in 2016. Yep. I remember that.
Yep. Yeah. And that, so that bracket, that was at 86 kilograms. So that was one where you had Kyle Dake, David Taylor.
I forgot about that. Yep. I forgot about that. Yep.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, that was a great bracket, a lot of fun to watch. So that was a good one.
And then Miles Martin.
Miles Martin was a national champion at Ohio State. Never did win it again. He was a 4-time All-American, but he was in the finals 2 more times, and then he take 5th his senior year, maybe.
Yep, mentioned a little bit on him down there. And there's a good little thing. It does tell some stuff as I scroll through this. You can see it does a nice little article if you go over to Flow Wrestling. You guys that want to read on each one of these. Let's go through just a couple more. Nate Jackson, that's always a good one.
Yeah, handsome Nate Jackson. He's he's an really, really good athlete. Got a lot of attacks. He's been wrestling a lot of freestyle lately. He's gonna be ready to go. He's wrestled all summer. I don't think you're gonna see a lot of rust on him.
Okay. How about Drew Foster?
Drew Foster's another one that's been real solid through a college career. Had a good finish to his career, of course. He'll be. I think he he is also signed up to wrestle at the USA Senior National. So he's someone that's training pretty hard at this level.
And then I think I saw a YouTube video on him not too long ago where he's training pretty hard and going through different things. And promoting himself a little bit, so you can see some of these guys out there. How about Sammy Brooks?
Sammy Brooks, Iowa guy, tough as nails.
Yep. I'd love to talk about him.
Yeah, I figured you would. You know, he's kind of a wild card, I think. I mean, I think he's very, very dangerous. He had a really good. He wrestled in. Oh, which event did he wrestle in this summer? He wrestled in one of the few events that we had around this summer, and he won a pretty hard fought match. He was behind, came back from behind and won. He's gonna have a good gas tank. He's gonna be aggressive. Yeah. He's gonna be in your face.
And they also say that he might be a little bit bigger too. So, but they're gonna allow them a little bit of weight, and so it was kind of interesting there. I think it's another 2 kilograms.
No, that's it. This will be 195 pounds.
It's going to be right at 195.
Yep.
Okay.
The senior nationals will be a plus 2 kilogram. Just came out this week. They were saying they're going to be
okay. That's what I read.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
I think I'm probably gonna. I don't know. I guess it all depends how this bracket shakes out. But I think Gabe Dean's going to be kind of right in there as one of the guys to beat. Because he's actually, Kyle Dake's training partner, so he's wrestling every day, working hard. And he actually really he did not have a senior level career. He came out of college, wrestled I think maybe just one tournament. And then he just said, you know what, I'm going to focus on coaching. So,
okay. If you had to avoid 2 wrestlers in the bracket, which 2 would you want to avoid? Maybe Gabe Dean. Who else?
Or Keith Gavin.
Keith Gavin. Okay.
I think those 2 guys are going to be ready to go. I mean, I really don't think Keith Gavin throws his hat in the ring if he doesn't feel he can win this thing. I mean, he's another guy that's probably wrestling every day. With the college guys. So.
Mm-hmm.
Miles Martin's one that I think is a real dangerous guy. He's really tough. He wrestled in one event this summer too, but that was against David Taylor, and he got beat up pretty bad. And he's probably got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder there. But he is definitely one that can throw you to your back pretty quick. Sammy Brooks is another one that is not afraid to go upper body. So we'll see some. I mean, I think that we're going to see a lot of action. I think we're going to see. Guys going for it. I mean, this is, there's $20,000 on the line. And that's a pretty good amount of money for some of these guys to, come out and wrestle. So,
well, that's pretty cool.
Will they wrestle a true second?
No, they won't. No.
I would love to see the extra match if there was money involved.
Yeah,
I think if you even lose that first match, those guys even make $1,000. So I said I can make 195 and I can get in this bracket. But they didn't call me, I guess. So I'm thinking I'm going to stay home, watch it. We don't have any trick or treaters, so we'll be good. I can watch the whole thing.
Well, that's pretty good. Got to get that robot trick or treat handing out guys.
Yeah, whatever. We don't get many out here on the farm. We're pretty safe. But, so that'll be a lot of fun. I think that's the end of the month. That's October 31st, I guess. So that'll be fun to watch. It's I think that if those goes well, which I think it probably will. I think Flo's going to do more of these. I think they'll do one at pick a weight, right? They'll do one at 160 pounds. They'll probably do one at 140 pounds. They'll pick a weight where you can get guys kind of meeting there, and you could see, some pretty interesting matchups. Senior Nationals is going to be coming up in November, and that is not being as widely entered as as we'd like to see. But there's some weight classes there that are going to be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
65 kilograms, I think, is going to be really good.
Especially the ones that start gearing up for the Olympics coming up and stuff. There's going to be a few of those entering.
Yeah. No, I do see, and I don't know a whole lot about it yet, but it looks like Iowa is putting on their version of that Penn State had that.
That was supposed to be on the 29th, I think.
They moved it.
I think that's in November, right?
They moved it to November because there's some rules around who can wrestle and when. And November 1st is the date that I think they can let college kids wrestle, right?
Right.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
So that October 30th date kind of takes out anybody that's probably still in school. Well,
Right.
or anybody that could get paid, they couldn't anyway. But
correct. Yep. Yeah. So that'll be fun. We'll talk about that as time goes on. It looks like some pretty good matchups that I've seen lined up so far, but yeah, that'll be fun to watch too. So, if a guy's inclined to watch some good high school wrestling this weekend and some of the top kids in the country, Flow Wrestling will be showing the who's number one, and then just to throw out there the one in Iowa, that one's will be on Track Wrestling. So another opportunity to watch it on a different platform. So we get to see how different organizations do it different ways. So,
and that weekend of Halloween is preseason.
Is that preseason nationals too? USA Nationals?
Yeah,
I thought it usually is right then. I thought it probably was. Are you guys going?
Yeah, we signed up. I think they're only allowing 725 kids per division or something, and then they only allow one ticket per wrestler, and then you got to have bronze coaching. And during that quarantine, I actually got in there because, and USA still might be doing it. I'd have to ask one of my USA guys, but they were allowing bronze level coaching at no charge. So it used to be like $90 or $100, and you go through about 3.5 hours, and it's good stuff. And then, you just get your leader card and then do your background check, which that's good for 2 years. But you can get your bronze level coaching now, and you can basically get it for $100 off ish, which is not a bad deal if you've got some kids who are going to coach, or even you want to be even like me, like a backup coach. Like when I go to the Rumble, I'm kind of the guy that can start the kid, and then like when things get rough, bring a real coach in. I'll carry the water and the tape, and get them started, or maybe coach some of the JV kids and
rub a few shoulders and give some inspiration.
Exactly. Yell at the ref a little bit, then step out.
Yep.
Well, I did put up what they have for the preseason national. I did have that kind of in the background. I forgot I had even looked at that earlier today. But that, again, is in Des Moines, Iowa there, the USA Wrestling Preseason National. And so that's not too far. How long does that take to get there from Rapid?
It's about 9.
It's about
9 hours. Okay. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, once you get, Sioux Falls is 5 and you're past halfway. And we lived down there for 6 years, and my son Jack always tells everybody that he was born in Iowa because that means something to the rest of the community. But he was down there when he was born. So we've still got friends down there. We were down there from 2000 to 2006 before we moved to Rapid. So, he was actually, when we would have went to school where Kyle Biscaglia went to school. We were in the Waukee School District. So my daughter started down there. But, if he'd have came up through the ranks, he would have probably wrestled for Waukee, which is one of the big, 3A schools down in the Des Moines area. Yeah.
Okay. Well, another thing I always want to promote USA Wrestling. They do a great thing in the sport or in the state of North Dakota. But one thing I just want to mention now, all those people that are doing this, I tell you what, anybody that's going to do junior nationals, do the junior duels, you might as well. We're on the new season. Pick up those cards, the extra insurance. You're going to wrestle it anyway. You have it during your high school season. It works there too. Other people, I tell you what, it's not a bad idea. It doesn't cost much.
Yeah, here's the deal on that, John, just so some of the high school coaches that may not know this.
Yep.
If you have more than, I don't know if it's 10 or 9 or what the number is, but you can sanction your high school for $400. Every kid 9 through 12. So like Stevens, for example, we probably got, 40, 50 kids, but probably 20 or 30 of those are high school kids. You can actually sanction all of them. And even save even more money. So if the club wanted to pick that up for one of your high schools, or somebody wanted to donate that, or you could just afford to do that, you can get the whole team done for $400. That's a slick deal.
Oh, that is definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I didn't know.
Yeah, so we do that down here. Like for example, Stevens, I think it's called Rapid City High School or whatever. But anybody that grades 9 through 12, you can pick up a USA card for them for $400, and that's capped at 400, and you could register as many kids that go to your high school, and then they can be covered. So it's a good deal.
I tell you what, I don't think you could go wrong. Well, I tell you what, See, we got Mankato State Wrestling coach on here again. Awesome. In fact, I'm going to invite him right now. Jimmy, I'd love to have you on the show in the near future. I'm putting you up on the spot here online. I'm hoping you say yes, you'll be up for that. And I'd love to visit with you. You got great knowledge in the sport. And guess what? I would definitely love to have you on. I think these guys would enjoy the interview. The great comment he put, and he's given Bill some kudos here that his knowledge of what's happening in the wrestling world.
Yeah.
So,
not quite rock star level. That's Jim Makovsky. He's the rock star. We all know that. So
yeah.
I do look forward to him coming on. I'm sure he'll do it now that you've asked. So I look forward. It'll be fun.
Yep. All those guys. In fact, I made an open invite to everybody on our USA board and the people that were there today. So I'm hoping some of those guys take on that mission of promoting the sport too. I know they're great ambassadors, but I know some people don't like getting online too and showing their face. And it's kind of like, I love to do it, but guess what? I don't want to be like public.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, let's go back and what do you know what's happening now? I'm going to ask you this question, even though I know the answer. What at your level? Okay. Now your boy is he already starting to get looks from South Dakota wrestling places? Let's say, SDSU, you got a few other colleges that, there's not many options really. There's Wyoming that's close to you.
One of our kids just went to Wyoming this year.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper Voorhees, Brent's kid. So he's over there now. And there's a kid from Thunder Basin from Wyoming that went over there as well. And I had heard a rumor that they might shut Wyoming down for a couple weeks. I don't know if that's true, but so he might get to come home. But I'll be honest, probably about 2 months ago, Chris Clapharot, and you may know that name. He wrestled at Iowa. He was a 6-time finalist for Stevens, 3-time state champ, All-American, I think, at Fargo, and really great wrestler. Moved back to town, started a family, working, and he still runs some training for us at Black Hills Wrestling Academy. And he sat down with the kids this summer and basically asked them all, like, do you want to wrestle in college? And if you do, you need to start thinking about putting your profile together and kind of listing your accomplishments and reaching out, because anymore, there's so many kids that, it's hard to track the youth and even some of the high school side. Flow covers the best kids in the country, but they don't know what they don't know, and it's hard to find all these tournaments where you could face somebody that's pretty decent. And it's not always about, obviously South Dakota record and whatever. It's who you beat and who you wrestled, etc. So he sat him down and talked to him about that. And, those were the discussions. And, I think he wants to, but, he's not sure if, it's hard as a junior in high school to reach out to a bunch of colleges.
True.
So about 2 weeks ago, I printed all the colleges in the country, D1, D2, D3, just for fun.
Right.
And I said, here's a list, get on their website, check it out, whatever. But I think Chris had some good insight for those kids. It's not easy. As you know, Bill, your son did it. You guys know that it's harder. It's more competitive. You really got to love it to keep doing it. My daughter just lost her senior season of soccer at Northern, and that was heartbreaking for her. But, at the end of the day, she had to come to the realization she's not an athlete anymore. She needs to focus on that. But, I think he would like to wrestle at the next level. Have we been talking to any coaches or any colleges? No, but if there's any listening online, happy to reach out to you. But no, I think, he's gotten serious the last 2 years, I think. The 8th grade year to freshman year, not sure. We're doing okay. But, now that he's gotten better and wrestled some higher level kids and you start to have some success and be competitive, you wonder. Mm-hmm. And he's at a weight where there's not a lot of 25-pounders walking around the country. Northern just got a great one in Salt Frank. He was very good in high school. And, and there's, the Tanafu kids obviously just signed at Michigan, so,
right.
It's exciting. So I don't know, but yeah, we're all ears, and I don't know what all the rules are right now and all that. I think D2 is open. I don't think D1 is. So, that's kind of where that stands. And Bill, you probably know.
Well, yeah, it's a no contact period for D1 for sure. Kids can go visit schools, but if they do go take an unofficial visit, they can't talk to a coach and they can't,
coach, right.
so, but I guess I'll just put it on, as far as I'm concerned, I just can't stress the value of what these kids are getting when they're going and competing at the college level. I think the education experience is better. I think overall they become, part of community, and that is probably the best thing that can happen when kids get to college. When kids go to college and they leave, I would have to say more often than not, it's because they really either are not part of a community or not part of the right community. Right. And they ended up,
that's very important,
fumbling out. So, I think everything I've seen, at the college level has been a positive. And I, Billy would probably, tell you that at some points it's maybe it's hard. There's no doubt it's a hard thing to do, but these guys will have all been super successful as they're leaving. I think every one of them is, and some of them will wrestle for 5 years and some will wrestle for 4 years. And
that's just
but either way,
that's just something really good about the Northern program too, that he brings them all and they feel like they're part of something and a great community together. And
they've done, and I'm not, I'm just talking about that one, but that I wouldn't even single that one out. I would say, we got Jim McCoskey at Mankato. I'm sure is building the exact same kind of a program. I've seen those guys compete for the 5 years we've been around, plus, the few years that I've watched before that. And, they're all tight. They're close. You see the same thing at St. Cloud. You see it at Moorhead. You see it at Mary.
You have to have it. You have to have it.
And it's funny that, how, and I'll just talk about a little bit about how the process went for us. And, Billy he had, all of a sudden it kind of became like, geez, I guess I could probably wrestle in college. Right. But he kind of thought, I think he was 0-12. He didn't start wrestling until he was a 7th grader. And he was 0-12 when we were watching the D1s on TV. And he was like, I wonder which college I'm going to wrestle for. And I'm like, yep, no problem. I don't see that being an issue. But, when he after winning a state title or, that really became pretty, it was real, right? This was something that people were starting to contact him a little bit. And of course, like all kids, he really felt that he was going to go D1 like a lot of people do. That's where you're looking at. He visited, 3 D1 schools and a few other D2 schools. And they were coming from South Dakota State. And I actually had reached out, I think to Rocky and just said, hey, my kid's going to be coming. They're going to be coming through there. It'd be all right if they just stopped and, made a visit there. And my wife and Billy were coming through and they stopped and they had Walker and Riley with us, so it was kind of a good stop. But, that they kind of hit it off right away. And the day came that they all had kind of made this commitment. Yeah, you know what? It's okay. This would be a good place to go. And just before their senior season got kicked off, they all committed. So, and I don't believe any one of them ever regretted a day of it. Maybe a day of it, but overall it was a great experience. And I'd recommend it to anyone.
Right. And anymore, even with my daughter, and Northern's been good for her as an athlete, because like you said, you've got an instant set of friends, you've got study table, you've got a lot less chance to be out on the weekend getting in trouble. There are some rules and some things you have to abide by. And as corny as some of the college kids might think that is, it's actually good for some kids. And so I think it's helped her in that sense. But, once you kind of figure out where you'd like to go, then you can get into that. And he took his ACT about 2 weeks ago to get that out of the way, just to test it and see how that was. And so, if he wants to go, we'll support him 100%. But, anymore, you've kind of got to get out and do some of that yourself. If not, you're kind of late in the game. So it's about that time, and we'll see. And he's wrestled some kids that are committed, and we wrestled them tough. But ultimately, it's up to him. But yeah, if that's what he wants to do, we'll support him. If not, then hurry up and get your education and go get out of the house.
Get a job, boy.
Come support me. Yeah,
no doubt. Well, I tell you what, I haven't really thought of that so much. I've got a sophomore who was 108 pounds a couple of years ago, and now weighs 175. In a matter of 2 years, has just taken off, and he's 6'2", 6'3". And
he was 138 at the Rotary, wasn't he?
Yep. And now he weighs 175. Yeah. And he's just shot up. He's getting, what's interesting is I think he still has 138 strength. He's going to be wrestling 160 or 170, but working on that. I'm kind of doing this dad weightlifting program with him where I lift what he does, but I of course add weight to it. Me putting up just 135 benching just doesn't work so well, but that's kind of what you have to do as a parent. I don't know if you guys have that. You have that same mentality with your kids. What do you do? Do you have other partners, or do you help your kids individually yourselves? Like go to the gym with them? Did you? How about you, Tom?
Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah. I mean, the different sports. Baseball, I threw a lot of balls in the cage. Football, I coached both of my boys and up to 7th grade when they start middle school ball in 8th. So I kind of cut, even my daughter, I coached a little soccer, even though I don't know as much about that, but at the youth level, it's easy. But in terms of weightlifting and stuff, like right now, Jack does CrossFit 3 days a week and wrestles too. My middle schooler is just playing football, and he played baseball most of the summer. But Jack has done CrossFit and wrestled since March 1st, 3 days a week and sometimes on the weekends. And we were able to have a couple camps at the Wrestling Academy this summer. We brought some guys in, brought in Ben Vumbar. He might be a guy that might want to come on your show from that Colorado area, Ben Vumbar. I think one of his kids, did he commit to the Air Force Academy on the prep school side, I think? And he was he had a state championship kid, but he's part of that Windsor program.
Okay. I'm going to, I'd love his contact information.
The kids loved him for, technique and some of the things that he does. He runs a pretty successful club in Bear Cave. Whenever they're there, they've usually got some hammers. He's a nice guy. I don't know if he'd want to get on or whatever.
So is he one of the trusty boys? Is he young yet? He must be.
Well, he's one of the dads of one of the kids on the team, so he runs the club. Okay. And Trusty Milo and his son run the high school Windsor team. Monty, yeah. But he's certainly not far away from them. And whenever they show up to practice at the road when they come down for the invite, he's not far behind. And like I said, we had him out.
Probably would have seen him then.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Really good wrestling guy. Does some stuff down there. He's actually got a bunkhouse where he does some camps down there in Bear Cave, and some kids can go down there and stay. I know that Logan Graff, that B kid that won state for Custer, he had spent some time down there wrestling with some kids down there, and they've always got some scrappers. But he's around. He was around this summer. So, and then we had some college guys do a camp, and we had some guys from Georgia. I can't say the name, but a Georgia group of guys that came up that ran a leg riding camp and did a nice job. And they brought 10 or 12 kids from Georgia, kind of made a vacation out of it, mixed up the practice partners with some decent kids. So it's been a busy summer. But in terms of the gym, my younger one's, he's 85 pounds as a 7th grader. He's pretty about what Jack probably was. But Jack now is doing a lot more CrossFit, not just straight lifting. But a lot of stuff that keeps you lean, get your core strong, and then they've been wrestling. So yeah.
I just love that there's an opportunity for him to wrestle. Around here, when things stopped, it stopped hard, and it was got to understand that most of our clubs in the state have been running out of high schools, and so they didn't have facilities to go to. When the school shut down, wrestling program shut down, and so there were very few clubs that had an opportunity to actually get together. And they didn't know protocol. They didn't know what to do, coming back to the mat. Now it's a big step. Just this last week, Mat Pack in Bismarck has now got a facility that they're going to have a couple mats. And I tell you what, that's going to open up doors that they don't realize that they just did, that they now have more opportunities to get in there. They'll have other people be able to get into the program. it's going to be huge for them.
We had there was a kid from Kimball, White Lake area that was a runner-up in the Bees. He lived out here this summer and trained with some of our kids, some of the Rapid City and Sturgis area kids, and Custer, Hot Springs, or whatever. There, Spearfish, Belfouche, and then there was Wyatt Turnquist was out here a good share of the summer. The Fisher kid obviously lives out here. I think he stayed with them and lived with him this summer, and they were able to work out. And Voorhees was getting ready for Wyoming, so it was a blessing. We, the academy's been open and we've been training there. And the big worry for the state and the youth and even the middle school kids, is, what's that going to look like? Are we going to be able to be in the high schools? Are we going to be able to have youth tournaments? We can certainly have tournaments. We know at the Civic Center here in Rapid because they've been having them, but is that what it's going to be? We don't know. And, football teams haven't even been able to practice on some of the grass fields at the high schools or middle schools because they've got everything shut down. So it's a little bit scary looking into the future, but maybe magically about mid-November, everything just disappears.
Oh yeah. We can all hope. Yeah, we can all hope.
But it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but we've been fortunate to have the academy. We're still training there. Like I said, we've had camps, we've had young kids in there, we've had older kids in there. So we've kind of been open for business. I think we've done it right. We started in small groups and kind of grew, but there's been some pretty dynamic kids that have come through there, West River and even some East River kids. And I think there was a gal that maybe came down from North Dakota for part of the summer to train from the eastern part of North Dakota, and they had relatives. But it's a small world when you know somebody and you're going to go live there for the summer, and it just happens. And of course, I think there's a couple kids from Virginia that moved in to the Stevens area, a couple other kids that were there the other night training, Jack said. And so you don't know until the season starts. So who knows?
Well, that's the same thing. If you listen to people like motivators, like a Tony Robbins says, without pain or without challenges, there's no growth. And this little event that we had last spring where there was no wrestling, it's a challenge. And guess what? How are we going to get over it? We're going to get better and grow from it. Because guess what? It's painful when you didn't get to go to the D1s that were just in Minnesota. So if you don't want to, you're either going to give up or you're going to do something to make it better, and try to still strive toward that goal, of doing that stuff. So right. I do really believe that as gentle as we might think we are, wrestlers will basically thrive in this environment. They're going to find a way to work out and find tough partners.
Yeah, and I think there's they're able to do it at some high schools, limited in there, and there's been some high schools that do it, and obviously there's still wrestling kids that are playing football, which is great, and some that don't. But ultimately, if they can find a way to work out, and even if they don't have access to it, it's not like the old days that we didn't have to just get out and run and get better conditioning. Some of the kids run cross country, or there's things you can do at home, but when you're doing live goes, and you've been doing them for a while, it prepares you for some of these early tournaments, hopefully to score some points and win some matches maybe you're not supposed to.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So we'll see.
Yeah. How about this? Now you're a football coach.
Yeah.
Favorite football drill for seventh graders?
Favorite football drill for seventh graders?
Well, the reason I say this because I always liked the old where you get all the pads and have them run through trying to knock the football out. Because there's always that one kid that you're going to go, guess what? Even as a coach, you're going to hit them just a little bit harder with the pad.
Well, they always want to do the Oklahoma drill.
Okay.
But then when we start, they don't all really want to do it. So, we do that. I do a drill with my running backs where I make them jump step sideways and run through two of us in a yellow pad. And I'm trying to teach them because at that age, some of the kids aren't afraid to lower the shoulder, but most of them stand straight up. So I'm trying to teach them to do that. But, favorite, I usually get a blocker and a running back and then, one other guy on defense. And then they got to get through the cones and they usually tiptoe on the side. And then I'll add a linebacker who's probably going to be unblocked. And that's when things get a little bit real for them. So that's kind of a fun drill, but you kind of got to know your kids. We've got a couple bigger kids and some smaller kids. And, in the game, you don't get to pick who tackles you. But in practice, we just don't need anybody getting hurt. So we just have some of those big kids wrap up. But that's probably a fun drill. I enjoy that, and I think the kids do.
I just love all sports, and so it's kind of interesting. I coach a lot of football too. And what age do they start with tackle football and rapid?
Well, the weird part is when Jack was a first grader, they had tackle football, and I started him in tackle football. So I've been coaching youth football for about 11 years, but Max didn't start till he was a fourth grader, and they have two separate leagues. One plays on the weekends, and then one plays during the week. And when my daughter made the varsity at Stevens as a sophomore, we needed to free up our weekends. So we moved Jack to the during the week one, where they play at a softball field on an 80-yard field. But, it's still football. It doesn't matter. It's grass, and the kids still have fun. So, but he started real young. He's not playing anymore. My other one started at fourth grade, which is probably a decent age to start. And then they play through seventh grade in Rapid City public schools because they don't have middle school ball till eighth grade. But St. Thomas More, Sturgis, Spearfish, some of those other schools outside of Rapid bring their seventh and eighth graders together. And they don't do that in Rapid. It's just probably too much work to have extra coaches and 75 kids out for football. So, there's that rub. But
give me some of your philosophies, Bill and Tom, about wrestlers being multi-sport athletes. How about you, Bill? What do you think?
I'm all for it. I think that, it's so funny because I've seen it so, in a lot of different ways. I saw it, in bigger schools and in bigger towns where specialization and kids really got specialized in one sport at a fairly early age. I saw it
out of control sometimes. Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then of course, then I see it from a a small school like where we're at here, and I think that the value of multiple sports is, well, I guess I'll just put it this way. I think that they gain something from every activity that they do, and it's not just sports. I think they gain something in every activity, and I don't think we give up anything at the end. Where I do, that was always the real question mark for me is, okay, so everybody's specializing in, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, wrestling, you pick it. Is that giving us at the end of that senior year, is that giving us the best football, baseball, basketball, hockey players? And I don't think it did. It's hard to judge it because you don't know, but even the coaches at that point, they lean pretty hard on the guys that specialized early.
Mm-hmm.
So do they have a better, final outcome because they were better, or did they have a better final outcome because they got more opportunity?
Okay.
And that happened quite a bit. So I saw, everybody, in this area, of course, they're all multi-sport athletes, because if they don't, we don't have a team, right? We don't have a football team. We don't have a wrestling team. We don't have a
baseball team, all that stuff. Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, Billy was in cross country and football and wrestled and track and, speech and, all kinds of stuff, and it didn't hurt him, right? I mean, it was good.
Right.
And I'll say the same thing for, Walker and Riley, they were all multi-sport athletes and they were good ones. I mean, the other ones were, Billy was average and, but they kept at it. They worked hard. So I think and I've seen that not just with our wrestlers, right? I saw it with the football players that also played basketball and then played baseball or, however it went. And so I think I'm all for it. I think it's the best outcome. I'm not, now that doesn't mean that I don't think that because it's summertime and it's baseball season that we shouldn't still be wrestling, right? I've always still felt that that's, I'm not saying you have to wrestle 5 days a week, but, let's still get it on the mat. Let's still do it. We still did it in the spring. We still did it in the fall, just less, maybe it was 2 nights a week. We'd go in and wrestle. And, Not everybody probably felt because it's full, right? It's a full boat. It's a lot for the parents. It's a lot for the kids. But I do think that's an important part of it still too.
Mm-hmm.
If you think one sport is kind of your main sport, I still think you got to kind of focus on that one year round while you do everything else.
Yep.
I think, and I think to your point, Bill, it's important, especially, and I grew up in a smaller town, but I will say that my perspective has changed a little bit being in a school with over 2,000 students. When my daughter became a sophomore, her best sports were soccer and track, and basketball was probably third. As a junior, she knew that she was going to be 7th or 8th off the bench, probably not play that much, and wanted to play a little bit more of soccer and focus on that and conditioning and then track. Did that pan out for her? She got a soccer scholarship, and played that basically in the fall, and then some in the spring when track wasn't going on, and then the summer. And Jack, for example, he played football all the way up to his freshman year. And then the sophomore year is a little bit tougher year because you don't have as many games and you're basically a practice dummy, because you don't get that many JV games and you're running scout team. So I can see where, like he didn't want to play football and he's not super fast. But if they're doing something, as Billy said, if he's working out 3 days a week and wrestling too, I'm not gonna talk him away from that. Now, will he miss the bus rides and playing poker on the bus and having fun? Maybe not. But in a school like Stevens, you almost have to become a two-sport athlete unless you're gifted. And I mean gifted to the level like you're almost Mr. Basketball or, at that level. For example, at Stevens, just for, as an example in basketball, if you're not top 3 or 4 in your class after your freshman year, you'll never play, ever. Unless you're playing in a C game or, whatever. It's just tough. So, I'd love to see them all out for sports, but if they're going to put their drive and passion into that and they're not going to take 5 days a week off in the off season, then I'm not opposed to that. And Jack's played some baseball and had some fun with that over the years as well. But right now he's just wrestling, and that's kind of where his heart and soul is. And I can't fault him that. I love him to play football. Would he play? I have no idea. You know what I mean?
Well, I see both sides of this. What's interesting is I feel bad for my boy being in a big town. I'm in Bismarck, and his opportunities as a 108-pound, 8th grader was minimal. Even though he was tough, he would tackle everybody. He would get in front and block everybody. And in fact, their center got hurt, and he was 108 pounds, and it's a huge middle school, and they had him centering. He's hiking the ball, going against 200-pound guys in 8th grade. Not a problem. But when it came down to it, he knew at a small size when he became a freshman and sophomore, he doesn't play football anymore. And I feel bad because I learned so much from the sport and loved the sport from playing it, in a small town where you had an opportunity to play those other sports. And I see Tom's side. But the whole thing is you didn't specialize them when they're a 3rd, 4th, 5th grader.
No, I think that's
way different.
Yeah, that could get, then you could get some burnout, and you don't even know if they're going to be in that sport in high school. I will say that, growing up in a town like Chamberlain, for example, most of my life, if he was there, it would be, he could contribute on some of those other teams for sure. But at Stevens, no, it's probably, it's not going to happen, or, it'd be, you have to be splitting some time for that. And right now that's not where he's at. So I think if we were in a smaller town, I think it'd be easier to do more and be a part of that because you'd be with all the guys that you're going to be with, in wrestling or whatever. But in a big school like that, I think, I hate to say it, but it almost forces kids, to be a two-sport athlete. And it even allows for, and our football team has been challenged, over the years, and a lot more kids, East River, just play football and their wrestling isn't as good. But if some of those kids that played football wrestled, they would have a lot more kids that, could compete, but their football teams have been dominant and ours have struggled a little bit. And it's kind of the chicken or the egg, you need everybody to come out to be competitive, but, you want to be part of a winning program or, whatever, win some games, and so it's been challenging in that respect, but in a bigger school, I think it's harder. In a smaller school, I think it's a little bit easier, and there's probably a little bit more peer pressure just to do it, to be with your buddies.
Right.
Yep.
kind of lost in the crowd syndrome that happens sometimes in the bigger schools, where if you're an average athlete, you kind of get put off to the side. So you got to find what you can specialize in a little bit. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
One thing I do see, and I would say, what we see is a lot of these kids, they don't mature when they're in 7th and 8th grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So all of a sudden they step away from football because the coaches are overlooking them. They're not getting the playing time they want to play. And we forget, or we don't forget, they don't realize, we know it, they don't realize of how much they get from practice. I mean, there's a lot of value in learning how to keep working every day.
Right.
And all of a sudden you got a kid that was a 108-pound 8th grader, and he's 175, 180-pound junior or senior that can tackle better than anybody else because he's been wrestling his whole life and shooting double legs on 106 pounders.
Yeah.
So that's one of those reasons you kind of like to see those kids do it all. And I understand that at the bigger schools, in a lot of cases, you don't even have that option just is taken away. They're losing that playing time, and I know in a lot of sports there's only room for so many kids that right they're and I don't know about every school but I know there's schools that obviously there's a tryout and you may not even be
they like at Stevens they'll put 60 70 kids, they'll dress a few freshmen but mostly sophomores through seniors, and a lot of times what happens is by the time they become seniors, to your point Billy, they come back and they're bigger and they've got hair under their arms and they're a little stronger and they're kind of the cat's meow and they decide I'm going to come back out for football, and they miss those 2 years or 3 years, and then they're kind of behind the 8 ball, but the coach is like, God, this kid can tackle and he can do some of that stuff. I'm going to put him out there. I'll deal with his mistakes and coach him up. But, that is challenging. In a smaller school, I think you're able to keep those kids' attention a little bit more. But, I'm torn. And I'd love to see him out there on Friday nights. But by the same time, when he comes home on the weekends or on a Sunday after a CrossFit workout and can barely walk, how do I argue with that?
Yep. Yeah. As long as they have those athletic goals, those that drive to compete, I think that's such a big thing. It could be speech, could be debate, could be the science fair. I think just competing in general is a huge bonus for a kid's lifetime achievements in stuff, because if you just decide that I'll just be average, it just doesn't work in my atmosphere as a coach and as a teacher. I don't know.
And this summer he stocked the freezer at Safeway for about 3 days a week from 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. So he got, and then he was able to work out at night, and it turns out the manager of Safeway was a 2-timer from Stevens that manages it, so he got the job right away. Yeah.
Oh, I tell you what, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Okay, definitely. Okay. Any other major topics you guys want to talk about? It's amazing how we got through an hour, and I got so many things I'd love to talk about. But, Bill, if you're available again, I could go on later this week or next again early on. But
late. Well, it's Wednesday now, I suppose. Yeah, I'm usually available, especially later in the day. But
sounds good.
I'm always up for talking about wrestling or all the other wisdom you guys can impart on me all the time. So,
okay, Bill, any major topic you want to talk about before basically let's try to cut this down to about the next 10 minutes. If nothing else, it will be.
I don't really have a whole lot more. I guess, we've touched on a few things that we can expound on a little bit. We talked about the USA Wrestling stuff, and I know that a lot of these clubs are starting to kick up their USA Wrestling programs and their seasons. I'd say Northern State's got their USA club kicked off earlier this week. So they're, starting to practice a little bit, and that makes you kind of excited to see. And I would guess that, around the NSIC, a lot of these teams are probably having their off, their preseason workouts where they're wrestling a couple days a week and lifting. And, I kind of hear about how that's going. And so that's kind of fun. And, makes you think we're maybe going to have, some chance of the season. And, we don't always get to see a lot of freestyle wrestling this time of year. So it's kind of fun to watch these senior level guys kind of getting ready. And hey, there is one more thing I wanted to talk about. We talk about flow a little bit, but they have a new documentary out. Started last week. There's been 2 episodes dropped, and it's the Metcalf story.
Oh, yes, I did actually catch that. Yes.
Yeah, the Metcalf, this thing started. I mean, they started this. They do a great job. They've done better over the years on these documentaries, but the Metcalf one they've been working on for I think over 2 years.
Well,
I think
somebody flipped it over to YouTube too, so I'm not sure if it's just going to be all on Flow. I watched part of it actually.
Yeah, that's probably
Pirated.
Somebody pirated over there.
Pirated it, but
even though I've got Flow, I
might be able to find it there. But it is, it's great. It's second episode came out today. That was fun. There's 3 episodes, so there'll be another one next Wednesday. But I recommend it. I think we watched Metcalf as a competitor for a lot of years, and this is really kind of neat because it started as a really as a youth, and you kind of watch and you get some real good insight as to how he was as aggressive and hard-nosed and really just in your face as he was as a competitor. Off the mat he was kind of a goofball, right, and still is today. So you see a little different side of it. So that was kind of fun. You see a little backstory, some of the heartache that a lot of us go through in life, and he had some of his own there too. I think it's great. I think it's good. I think it's a good watch. So
okay.
One thing that I guess I didn't know the whole story. I knew that there was a little. I had heard maybe an interview with Brett one time, and that's Brent and him and Dustin Schlater. Just a kind of a fun story that him and Dustin, they're from Michigan and Ohio, and then Brent's brother Chase and CP, Dustin's brother, and every one of these national and regional tournaments they'd match up every week, every tournament they went to, and CP would beat Chase, and Dustin would beat Brent every week. He said it was just like every single time we'd go and get our butts kicked, and those guys actually wrestled. Brent and CP wrestled in and Dustin wrestled in the senior nationals back in Virginia Beach when they were seniors, and it was a heck of a match. They kind of showed that match too, and so it's kind of fun to see that big rivalry that went on for a lot of years, and we've seen those in our own backyards, and they may not be 2 guys that are going to be national champions or world team members, but they're the guys down the street, and we get to see them. So it's kind of fun to see how those things have happened, not just here, but they happen everywhere. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of fun.
Well, I do have one more topic for Tom. I wanted to congratulate Rapid City having a great wrestling season last year. We didn't get to finish that out. You guys took both sides, the dual and the individual, and it was a battle. I tell you what, I never saw a coaching staff more happy come the finals matches as they start rolling and start winning some matches, and some guys in the blues, because it was tight. It was coming down to the wire who's going to win.
1 point.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was a barn burner. It was a great state tournament. Sioux Falls did a great job. What was interesting is at the same time, that's when Northern was down there. Mary, they had their super regional. They had it down there in Sioux Falls. So I was catching a lot of wrestling that weekend.
It was a good weekend. Yeah. And the bar was packed with guys you could just chat with.
Yep. Definitely. But
it was exciting to repeat and get that, and then get the state dual championship. That was, kind of one that,
so give me your opinion. Give me a quick opinion on how you thought the duel was run down there. I thought it went pretty well.
Yeah. I think there was some teams that weren't in the duels that didn't like, waiting around, because there was some waiting, and then, the seating was an issue, but Chamberlain, Nash's dad, came through for us and gave us all the Chamberlain seats up front. But I think they're going to make some changes to it. It was a little bit different, but we kind of battled through it, and we got to wrestle 5 or 6 kids in one of the duels that came with our team that weren't necessarily starters in the state tournament, and a lot of young kids were a part of that. It was exciting. The duels, like the championship duel with Watertown was close, and of course, Brandon was loaded this year, and a couple things, went Harrisburg's way, and will be again. Yeah, they'll be really loaded this year. But at the end of the day, I kind of felt like we stole one in the duels, and then things went right for us on the individual side, and we were able to put, a lot of kids on the podium, and that's what it takes. In the A's, you've got to just get guys on the podium, and we had a lot of high placers, and it was just, everything just kind of worked out. So it was exciting.
Do you remember the exact number you're returning of state placers for this year?
I want to say that last time I looked, we had about 9 kids.
I think 8 or 9 returning.
8 or 9 returning that had varsity experience during the year, whether that might have been in Mandan or, some of those that wrestled not on the JV side per se, but might have wrestled part of the year on JV, depending on injuries and different things. And then there's a few kids that will be at Stevens this year too, that, can contribute, I think, next year. And we got to kind of see how things shake out. But, I think most believe we'll be chasing Brandon. They got a good squad, some good kids. And of course, Pierre's got a lot of returning guys left. Central's got some great kids. Spearfish had a transfer in. Yeah, yep. Watertown, they lost a lot of their horsepower. So, we'll see what they have in the A's. And of course, I mean, there's good kids all over. They're spread out on some of those teams that aren't as deep. But, and we get to host it in Rapid this year. So we get to, hopefully if it works out, we'll be doing that. But they're going to tweak the duels a little bit. So I think, and that'll be to the coaches. I think,
I had kind of heard they're going to get closer to the North Dakota schedule than the South Dakota schedule.
Yeah, I think they're going to tweak it to make it better for coaches and athletes and, figure that out a little better. So, it was nice to bring him back. It was a little nerve-wracking. My son, for example, wrestled, I think 7 matches or 8 matches that
big weekend.
And the kids, the funny part was, so going into the placing rounds, the night of the duels, we were going to wrestle 3 out of the 4 kids that we probably were going to see in the morning in the con semis.
Oh yeah.
And then in the consolation, probably championship. So 3, we ended up facing 2 of them, but we had a shot at 3 of the 4. So we wrestled some of those kids twice in literally less than 24 hours.
Oh, it happens.
So that was one of the things that,
we've had it back to back, the dual final and then go into the semis for us. Now they switched it. So now it's the semis, then the duels, but going back in the time, we've had back to back, basically tough matches where you're in the state finals for the duel or the duel coming up, and you just lost the semis to the guy you just have to wrestle again. Oh, I tell you what, emotions for families and wrestlers, it is so high.
Oh, we've seen those go both ways though, right? We've seen it.
Yeah.
You win the one and lose the other. And
I think they were hoping that more people would stay. And based on walking back from the duels to the congregation area of the Sheridan, there's a lot of people that watched it on TV and had a lot of fun watching it on TV. So a lot of them just didn't go. And I think they were hopeful they'd get more to stick around and watch it. But it was mostly just wrestling people, for the most part that were there to watch wrestling. And then, the families of the kids that were wrestling. So maybe, hopefully maybe some people, more people go to those, but being they're televising them and they could go back to the hotel room and hang out and drink a few, Gatorades or Powerades and watch it on.
If it's the athletes, not the parents. Yeah.
Yeah. The parents anyway. So, but it was interesting. I was nervous obviously, but I'm a nervous guy, but it worked out and it was exciting. It was fun.
You didn't look like a nervous wreck. I saw you up there. You were doing pretty good.
I was in the building next door, and I'm sure I was way more nervous than you were.
Yeah, I bet you guys were. Yeah, it was fun, and I think just from the referees to the workers to figuring it out, and positioning and where you're at in the mats and the cross and the bees, of course, were going on at the same time too. So, I don't know if they'll change that up a little bit. With Canton and Winter and Kimball and Gregory, a lot of those teams were in there that, it's tough. And there's some talk that they could split the A's and B's up again, which is a great event. There's talk that we might take all of December off. There's talk that I've heard rumors that they wouldn't do regions and they just seed 16. I mean, you just don't know what we don't know, but it's so hard as a fan when I used to stay back when Jack was younger and tap at the B's, and we wouldn't go to the A's because it was in Rapid. So I'd have him work and I'd work the floor.
Right.
it was great wrestling to watch, and it's tough to watch them both. And I think a lot of B guys would say they don't see the A stuff, and the A guys and gals would say the same thing. So even though it's together, you still don't get to watch everything. So it's challenging in that sense.
As a wrestling fan, it's very difficult. I love so many Class B matches that I miss. I actually have to tape because I broadcast during the A final, and there are half a dozen for sure B matches that I want to see like now. So
Me
I'm
too.
just kind of I'm peeking over there while I'm trying to watch the A also because it's so difficult. And so I would love it, but it's not financially, fiscal for the state to do it and everything else. North Dakota, South Dakota. I know I missed some in South Dakota. There's a couple finals matches that I know I was just mad kind of.
Now you can go back and watch those now, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And it's wrestling on steroids, and it's hard to. It's just like you don't know which way to go. And but I've got a lot of friends on the B side and kids that I know and have grown up with, or Jack wrestled, or somebody's wrestled, and I gotten to know even from just being at the host tournament, the Rapid City Invite, or seeing those kids around. So it's kind of too bad, but I understand the horsepower and the money that's spent to do all that. But I don't know. If they could split the weekends, I don't know that I would be opposed to it. And I probably would go to the Bees just to
as a fan.
As a fan. I mean, then you there's no pressure, right, Billy? You're just there to enjoy yourself.
That's right. Yep. Well, the problem with me, I do love the big event, and I do miss matches. There's no doubt. I have to try to do everything I can to pick out some of those kids that I want to see. But I also will say that I don't know that I'd be able to go 2 weeks. I mean, it'd be harder for a lot of us, to even as a fan, I'd probably end up watching. Not that I'd miss much. I'm sure I'd watch it. I'd be able to get it streamed somewhere. But so that's in real life. I don't know that I would be able to. Obviously, I'm trying to chase college matches all around, and I got to work for a living. And so that's. I don't know that I would. It'd be hard.
Hard. Definitely.
So we're hopeful that we get a season and that things work out, and we're doing the right things. Like Windsor, for example, trustees group, I don't think they'll be able to come to the invite because I don't think they're going to let them wrestle till January anyway. Right. So, and there was even some discussion I heard from some coaches that said they might limit bigger tournaments and do more duels and tries, which hurts some of those teams that don't have full squads, because then some kids are going to end up with a lot more forfeits and really maybe not get the mat time. They may not have a good practice partner. I mean, it just hurts kind of the sport in general, right? Across the state, so you don't get to see those matchups, or, that criteria is not there. It's 5 deep on it, and it's kind of a weird criteria or whatever, Right. I hope we can do it.
It's going to be odd. I've been trying to contact schools about schedules. There's nothing out there that's concrete. I cannot find a single schedule. I usually do a master schedule of all the tournaments. They're not even sure if they're having their tournaments yet. I mean,
that's the rub, John, is if they decided to take the month of December off as kind of a, break. And I heard they might do that for all sports. But again, I'm not the Activities Association. I just have heard this secondhand, two-party on-state check, So, but if they don't, and some of those clubs or high schools that rely on those tournaments, and they try to reschedule them in January over another tournament, and they've got referee contracts and schools that might bail and whatnot. I mean, you get yourself put in a position where then what do you do? You know?
You're going to have to piece things together, and guess what? You're going to have to be best friends with the people in your conference or something where guess what? You might have to wrestle Sturgis 6 times, what you do most of the time anyway.
Yeah, we'll get 7 matches with them, but even like some of the South Dakota schools have their schedules out. And like Canton, for example, I think they're going down to those duels in Cedar Falls in December, which there's going to be a lot of, good teams that are coming to that. I'm not sure, if Brandon, I heard, might be going to the Clash this year. I don't know. I know Central's gone to that in the past, Mitchell. Central does a lot more dual tournaments. And I think they raised the bar from 8 duels minimum this year to 10. So we may be looking for some partners for duels. Right. And again, in South Dakota, like North Dakota, if you get weather and you're supposed to have 4 duels that weekend and miss that tournament, it could cost you a ticket to punch to even get in.
Right.
So, there's a lot of factors that can go into that. And the PowerPoints and some duels don't help you. And, you want to wrestle somebody, there's a lot of factors.
Right. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
So we're just hopeful that we can get a season and everybody's healthy and we can do it. And if not, we'll do it in January.
Right. Get some mat time, get out there, practice, get a good practice partner. But I tell you what, we've ran an hour and 20 minutes. Like I said, an hour, we had 20 minutes. No, like I said, most of these times I can't find a spot to cut off. But I do want to make two huge shout outs, at least one great friend of mine who passed away, Tom Basler, Huron assistant coach. Sad, he was my age, just out of the blue, and he was just kind of retiring from wrestling. He had a big hug with him at the state wrestling tournament. It kind of makes me sad even thinking about it right now, but just want to give a shout out to him and his family and all the people that got to know him. Super, super guy, really helped me early on when I was starting Dakota Grappler. He actually did some selling and got me some contacts in the state of South Dakota. So I wish him the best, up in the big place. Also just want to give a little shout out to my dad who passed away just about this spring too in March. Kind of just a sudden thing, and got to have a great state wrestling tournament with him. So giving a shout out to him too to finish tonight. But guys, not to end on a sad note, I get so happy getting to talk to you guys and just keep promoting the sport. And we'll talk again. And I'm going to cut this off. But last words, Tom, I appreciate it. You got anything last things to say?
I'll echo your thoughts on Tom. He's a great guy. I went to high school with his wife. So, but he was always hilarious. And I'll tell you a funny story about Tom. So this year, my son had wrestled one of the Huron kids in the semis, and he ran a fireman's carry on him. And Tom came up to me after the match and said, "Your son ran an illegal move on him." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Your son never runs a fireman's," and he ran a fireman's against my kid.
He was a tough kid.
That kid. Yeah, he's a tough 7th grader or 8th grader, whatever he was.
7th grader.
Yeah, 7th grader, and got a little banged up at the state tournament, but solid kid, and he was joking with me after the match. But that's the kind of guy Tom was. I mean, he was hilarious in that sense, and I had seen him multiple invites, state tournaments, and I love the guy to death. He was more than a wrestling coach. He was a mentor to a lot of kids in Huron, and his wife is great. And it's tough. And obviously with your dad passing away, I mean, it just gets harder as we get older, because now we know, you just get to realize that can happen to anybody, and you got to live every day like it's your last one.
Definitely. And Bill?
I don't, not much to follow that. I just, John, obviously when your dad passed, I just was so happy that we were able to get him on here one time, and we had a great discussion, and we were able to kind of have that memory and keep that forever. So that's, when that happened, that was kind of one of those things that made me real proud that we were able to do that on here. So besides that, it was a lot of fun here talking tonight. We'll do it again.
Okay. Awesome. Well, guys, Dakota Grappler, you guys watch it on Facebook, all those people, promote it, push this, share it to people, because guess what? We're here. That's what I'm here for, to promote the sport. It's kind of my lifetime passion. I just love the sport. And I really think that wrestling needs it. I think it's that time of year where we need to get people fired up for the chances of wrestling again. So go out, share this. Go over to Dakota Grappler. I do have 129 different videos of wrestling on there from several years. We have probably 40, 50 interviews of different coaches from the past that have great insight on the sport. Go over, see more things on Facebook. Get an opportunity, not from Facebook, but over to YouTube. Subscribe. It really helps out. I'd like to get a lot more subscribers eventually, because I get more abilities to push videos out once I get to 1,000 subscribers sometime. Maybe someday. I know it's a small sport, but following's deep, guys. Okay. Well, guys, have a great night. Promote the sport. Good night, guys.
Good night.